What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to 3-Point Lead, the official podcast of Loeb's Leads. Today we are back after a couple-week hiatus with our NFL record predictions. If you didn't see the Instagram post, number one, make sure you go to the description, especially if you're watching on YouTube. Click follow there so you can see every single team, when they will be predicted, why they will be predicted, and how they will be predicted. If you're watching on YouTube as well, make sure you subscribe if you're not already. But every single team is going to fall into a category based on division. We're going to start with the Eastern divisions, NFC and AFC East. Today's episode is contenders. We're going to talk about the New York Jets, yes, the New York Jets, and the Philadelphia Eagles, two teams that I genuinely think could win the Super Bowl this year. I think if all goes well, they can win the Super Bowl. Without further ado, let's get into this episode. We're going to start with the New York Jets. We'll take a break in the middle. Then we'll go to the Philadelphia Eagles. Before we talk about the Jets and their schedule, I want to talk about the Jets and their depth chart, because this offseason, the reality with the New York Jets is they made some really good moves. Everybody always talks about the New York Jets and their lack of talent at tackle. Well, what happens when they sign somebody like Tyron Smith and they draft somebody like Olu Fashanu? What happens when they do that? Where does the discussion on talent at tackle go, right? I think those are two really, really nice pieces. You have Morgan Moses on the right side as well, but I think the plan will be to bring Olu Fashanu in there. You also look, Aaron Rodgers now has a number two receiver, a true number two receiver in Mike Williams. And you look at this offense with somebody like Garrett Wilson, somebody like Breece Hall, two young stars. And I think there's potential for it to be a top 10 unit. I think if they can protect Aaron Rodgers, which I think they will, they slide Elijah Vera Tucker inside as well, this could be a really good offense. And obviously defensively, like there's some really good things. I mean, defensive line, it's funny. Recording this July 23rd, 2024. Son Reddick is still holding out, but we wait to see. He comes back. You got Jermaine Johnson on one side. You got Javon Kinlaw and Quentin Williams in the middle. You have Will McDonald now, but Hassan Reddick on the other side. Like, that's an elite defensive line. Let's move to the linebackers, right? CJ Mosley, Quincy Williams. Quincy Williams is in my top 100. CJ Mosley almost cracked it. Really good linebackers. Defensive backs, we all know, extremely, extremely talented. Like, this is a really, really good team, top down, especially defensively, and they have some good special teams as well. Thomas Morstead, to me, was the best punter in the NFL last year. I don't understand why this team cannot make some noise. So without further ado, let's get into their schedule. I'll pull it up for us here. We'll go game by game. And I don't know, guys. Like the AFC East has a tougher schedule this year, and you're going to see like the way the Jets open up the season. It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't know, man. It's just this team looks good to me. Obviously, they start Monday night again, which is kind of weird. Monday night against the San Francisco 49ers. Now, I look at this game on the road. All signs point to the Niners. Every single time I predict a game, and you're going to see throughout the majority of the series, every time I'm going to predict a game, I'm going to say all signs point to A. I'm going to pick B. I'm not going to pick the Jets here. I'm going to pick the Niners to roll back at home. I mean, it sounds like Brandon Ayuk's going to show up to camp at least. If he's on the team by week one, that's a different discussion. But I'll go Niners here. I will go Niners here. So I have the New York Jets starting 0-1. Keep in mind, keyword there, starting 0-1, because week 2 at Tennessee, I mean, I think they kill them. Like, I think they kill the Titans. I think offensively the Titans will do some good things. And I talked about it last week. Will Levis, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, like all those guys can play. It's a good offense. I worry defensively. Obviously, they brought in L'Jarius Sneed, but what else can they do defensively? They were solid against the run last year. I think the Jets have a lot of success. I think I'll backtrack on them killing them. I'll say a 10-point win for the New York Jets, but they start 1-1. Short week, Thursday Night Football, New England Patriots. They are a superior team to New England in almost every facet. I'm going with the Jets. I don't think much needs to be discussed there. Week 4 on a longer mini bye against the Denver Broncos. Another little revenge game for Nathaniel Hackett. I love that narrative, but this is another win. Like, I don't understand a world. I don't see a world where the New York Jets fumbled this game to an inferior opponent, having a pretty seasoned veteran roster at home. Like, I don't see a world where this happens. I think I'm not even going to say anything about the Broncos. You guys can leave in the comments right now if you have any issues with this, but I don't think that there's a big issue with picking a moderately older team against an inferior team on a mini bye at home. Like I think this is the Jets game to lose, and I don't think they do. So after 4 weeks, the New York Jets, again, beating inferior teams, will be sitting at 3-1. And then they get into a tougher part of their schedule. They travel to Minnesota. Now, this is really tough because this is an international game. So it's not right. It's not technically a home game for the Vikings. Home field advantage is out the window. Look, why can't the Jets win this game? Why can't the Jets beat the Vikings on the road? Again, I think the Jets are a superior roster. I think you get a veteran defensive coordinator against a rookie quarterback. Granted, J.J. McCarthy should be starting at this point. Honestly, probably should have a couple games under his belt as well. I'm not going to go against Aaron Rodgers in this game. I just think the Vikings, even though they made some good moves defensively this offseason, Jets offense just a little bit better. When you look at the Vikings offense compared to the Jets defense, I think the Jets defense is just a little bit better. Like, I think this is a spot where the Jets can't lose. And I know winning 4 games at the beginning of the year is hard, especially when you have a quarterback coming back from a torn Achilles. But I just don't see it. I really, really don't see it happening. I think this is the Jets game to lose again, much like last week against the Denver Broncos, and they don't lose it. So right now the Jets will be sitting at 4-1 heading into another really tough game. Buffalo Bills. I believe this is a Monday Night Football game. 8:15 p.m. October 14th. This would be week 6. Guys, I don't think they lose this game. Like, I think the Bills are slowly getting overrated. I think when you have Josh Allen, you have a chance to win every game. I think that's the reality of the Buffalo Bills. But a longer week for the New York Jets at home against the Buffalo, like, I don't see them losing this game. I really don't. I think the Jets, again, defensively, a little bit better than Buffalo. Offensively, compared to the Buffalo defense at least, a little bit better than Buffalo. That secondary scares me. You saw what they did last year with Zach Wilson. I don't know. I think this is a game that the Jets win. I think Josh Allen comes into New York, has a similar game to what happened last year, week 1, on Monday night as well. Like, I don't know. The Monday night, not curse, I'm not going to say curse, but the Monday night blues will catch up to the Bills. And I think the Jets win here 5-1. Now, crazy to think the Jets would start 5-1. I am with you guys watching this, but I think they start to come back down to earth now. Like, on the road, this would be Sunday night at Pittsburgh. This is a tough one. This is a really, really tough one. I am going to go Pittsburgh in this game. I think Pittsburgh beats the Jets at home on Sunday night, moves the Jets to 5-2. However, if you look at the next game, you get a full week, travel to New England, on the road. I think they beat another inferior team. Like, this is a 6-2 football team almost halfway through the season. I think it's hard to argue that the New York Jets will be worse than the New England Patriots. And again, most facets, if not all facets. Drake May against that defense in either one of these games. Well, who knows if he even plays week 3. I shouldn't say that. But week 8, if you assume he's in the lineup, Drake May against that defense kind of scares me if I'm a Patriots fan. I think the Jets take this one. Next week, Thursday night, hosting Houston on Thursday night. You guys don't know how bad I want to pick the Jets here. You don't know how bad I want to pick the Jets here, and guess what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to move the Jets to 7-2. I think the Jets had a lot of success against C.J. Stroud. Last year, again, this is all without Aaron Rodgers, all without an improved offensive line, all without a wide receiver 2 for the Jets. This Jets team is exponentially better than it was last year, and they somehow won, 7 games, 8 games last year. This Jets team is exponentially better than it was last year. I think they win this game, shorter week, Thursday night. And then, guys, I mean, like, you look at this Jets schedule, and I'm not going to say it's a joke. No schedule in the NFL is a joke. But moving past that game, where I'm struggling to find losses. So you have a Thursday night game hosting Houston. You have a mini bye again into a 4:25 game against the Arizona Cardinals. The Jets are going to be 8-2. Like, I don't see a world where they're not 8-2. Maybe they move to 7-3. Maybe they drop that game to Houston. Maybe they lose a game they shouldn't. Right now, Jets, after beating the Cardinals November 10th, 4:25 p.m. Eastern, are 8-2. 8-2. How crazy is that? Do you believe that? I can't. I can't, but I'm looking at the schedule. I'm like, there's no way they don't do that. Now, I will say, I think the Indianapolis Colts the week after, and again, this is a Sunday night game, match up really, really well with the Jets. I think the Colts can move them up front. I think the Jets are going to struggle against a dual threat quarterback a little bit. A dual threat quarterback with weapons, because obviously Kyler and Anthony Richardson situations are different. I'm actually going to pick the Colts in this game. I think the Jets come in riding really high. I think the Colts come in probably in a 5-ish win spot. We can compare it to the Colts episode, which will be coming out in a couple of weeks, but in a 5-ish win spot. I think they're hungrier. I think the hungry dog runs faster. I think the Jets lose this game, but 8-3 heading into their bye week. So with 6 games left in the season, and wait till you hear who some of these opponents are. 6 games left in the season, I have the New York Jets at 8-3. 8-3, and I would have to compare it to the rest of the AFC East and what I have, but like this is a I'm not going to say how many total wins because we'll go through the rest of the schedule, but this is a large win team. 11 weeks through the season. You move into week 13 now, hosting Seattle after a bye. I'm not picking against Aaron Rodgers after a bye. After a loss and after a bye. 9-3, Jets beat the Seahawks. The next week is tough. The next week they travel to Miami. I think Miami gives that Jets defense a little trouble. Miami offense gives the Jets defense a little trouble. I think the man matchups play in Miami's favor. Obviously, Odell right now is starting the week on the PUP, but one thing I don't love about the Jets secondary is the inside and how deep it goes. So a third receiver for the Jets is going to be pretty important. I mean, Tyreek Hill had a great game last year at MetLife, but back in Miami in December, I'm picking the Dolphins to win this game. So Jets 9-4 after week 14, moving into the home stretch of their schedule, like on the road against Jacksonville. Do they really lose this game? Like, I don't think they do. I think off of a loss, I'm never going to pick against Aaron Rodgers. So they lose this game against Jacksonville? No. They're 10-4 after beating Jacksonville on the road. Granted, I get it. 10-4 after beating Jacksonville on the road. These last 3 games are tough because I don't like, again, like I said 2 minutes ago, I don't like to pick against Aaron Rodgers after a bye. After a loss. I really don't. But I really like the way the Rams match up against the Jets. I think the Rams go into MetLife and beat them December 22nd at 1 p.m. Then the next week, they're at Buffalo on December 29th. I think they go back-to-back losses here. I think they struggle a little bit to end the season. I think they lose to the Rams. I think they lose to the Bills. But I think coming back January 5th, they beat the Dolphins, finish 11-6. And again, I'm not gonna say anything about who's atop the division just yet because the AFC East and NFC East standings have to still come out for the rest of the teams. But I think they finish 11-6. I think this is a team that, can do a lot of damage defensively. It's going to make it really hard for teams to beat them. And offensively, I think they're extremely serviceable. And I think you look at the Jets off season, they have leaned into this idea and this belief that they can compete with anybody right now this year. And I think Aaron Rodgers staying and what he said this offseason about winning a couple Super Bowls, it's a real thing. Like, this is a real talented team. 11-6 for the New York Jets. I don't know. I think this is my dark horse AFC Super Bowl team. This is my dark horse AFC Super Bowl team. I'm not going to say anything about the rest of the standings, where they finish in comparison to everybody else in the division, the conference, but this is my dark horse Super Bowl team. Let's get into the Philadelphia Eagles, but we're going to start with a brief message from our sponsor, Better. Want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Better Picks. It's my favorite way to enjoy fantasy sports. You can pick more or less on your favorite player stats to up to 1,000 times your entry. And right now, Better is offering a first deposit match of up to $250 if you join with code LEADS. It's July 23rd right now, guys, depending on when you're watching, 23rd, 24th. The NFL season is right around the corner. Right around the corner. They have season-long picks for your favorite players, their yards. Get on Better. Join with code LEADS. Get a deposit match. Let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. I want you to take a look at the Philadelphia Eagles depth chart. And if you're listening on Spotify, Amazon, whatever it may be, I'll read it to you. And tell me this is not a Super Bowl caliber roster. Try it. Like, look at it. And again, if you're listening, I'll read it to you in a second. Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Paris Campbell, Dallas Goedert, C.J. Uzomah as the backup, by the way, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen, Lane Johnson. Remember, they have Mekhi Becton as a backup tackle as well. Defensively, listen to this. Milton Williams, not a lot of people know who that is. That's okay. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Bryce Huff. And they have Josh Sweat as their fifth rusher, right? Devin White, Nolan Smith, right? Nakobe Dean, Quinyon Mitchell, rookie, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Reed Blankenship, Darius Slay. They still have James Bradbury on their roster. Avonte Maddox, Cooper DeJean, don't forget Cooper DeJean. And they have Isaiah Rodgers now. One of the best kickers in the NFL. A decent return game. Why can't this team win the Super Bowl? That's my question. Let's go through their schedule. I think there is a very real chance this team hoists the Lombardi come this February, excuse me. I don't know. I think this is a team that has gotten, I don't think backlash is the right word, but I think people have forgotten about them because of the way they ended last year. Now, I will say the year starts in a very interesting fashion because NFL Network brought up this great point. It's going to be really hard for two different coordinators to come in and both be effective right away. So when I'm looking at a neutral site game, right? This is a Friday night game in Brazil to open Packers-Eagles. I am finding it really hard to feel confident in the Eagles week one. Week one is going to be tough. I think the Packers are comparable in terms of talent. I don't think they're the best team in their division, but I think the Eagles drop this one. Dare I say the Eagles start 0-1 and win the Super Bowl? Is that too crazy of a thing to say? Because I look at their next three games and I think they can win all of them. You're telling me after a loss and pretty much a mini bye, you're hosting the Falcons in primetime. They're not losing that game. I know Kirk is great against the Eagles, but they're not losing that game. Next week on the road against New Orleans, they're not losing to New Orleans. The week after that, on the road against Tampa. I know they lost to Tampa in the playoffs last year. That is not the same Eagles team as the Eagles team we have right now. It's not. And, looking at the week after that, I'm a huge Browns believer. I think they got a lot of really good things going on. I don't think they lose to Cleveland at home the week after that. 2 weeks after that, that's their bye week. I don't think the next week at New York playing the Giants, Saquon's first game back, you think they lose that game? There's no shot. Like, the Eagles are going to rip off 5 straight. They're going to rip off 5 straight at the beginning of the year. Get right games against bad defenses, except for the Browns. They're going to rip off 5 straight. I do think traveling to Cincinnati the week after the Giants game, they drop that. I think that's going to be a tough game. I think Cincinnati matches up really well through the air. I think that's a tough game for Philly to win. But, you scroll down. Let's slow down a little bit here. We'll slow down. 0-1, rip off 5 straight, lose another. So they're 5-2 after 7 weeks. Remember, they have the early bye. After that Buccaneers game, they get 2 weeks off before they play the Browns. They're not dropping that game to Cleveland. 5-2 after the loss to Cincy. Then you travel to Jacksonville. You host Jacksonville on primetime. They're not losing that game. I don't see a world where they lose that game. So that's 6-2. 6-2. Here's where it gets tough, though, because I think people throw Dallas to the side as if they're not still a really talented team. I think Dallas hosting Philly November 10th, 4:25 p.m. Eastern, probably America's game of the week. Eagles riding real high. I think Dallas takes this one. I think the Eagles and the Cowboys are going to split. They do virtually every year. At least that's what it seems like. I think Dallas takes this one at home against Philly. But, the next week after that, on a short week, get that out of your head. You're going to host the Commanders on Thursday night. They're not losing that game. So that's 7-3 for the Philadelphia Eagles. 7-3. 7-3. 7-3 going into this would be week 11. You got 6 games left. Rams, Ravens, Panthers, Steelers. Or sorry. 7 games yet. 7 games left. Rams, Eagles, or Rams, Ravens, Panthers, Steelers, Commanders again, Cowboys again, Giants again. I mean, traveling to LA for a primetime game is really tough. But you got a mini bye after Thursday night. I think the Eagles matched up really well against the Rams last year. The structure of that Rams team is very similar to what it is now. Better in the secondary, but at the same time, Philadelphia is going to have their way on the ground, I think. I think Philly wins this one. So that puts them at what, 8-3? I think they do drop Baltimore on the road. I mean, it's a tough game. Back-to-back America's Game of the Week / primetime games. 4 straight in a row, it's tough. Takes a toll on somebody. You're traveling to Baltimore. I think Philly's run defense is going to be the worst of the 2 parts. So I'll go Baltimore here, but that's 8-4. Next week, get right game, host the Panthers. You're 9-4. Next week, host the Steelers, who are going to be going through a gauntlet at the end of the year. I think they win that one. 10-4. Now here's where it gets funny, because this is like you look at these games. The last 3 games they host or they are at the Commanders, and they host the Cowboys and the Giants. They're going to lose at least one of these games. I think they beat Dallas week 17, so we'll give them that one. But I have a weird feeling they lose to Washington. Week 16. They're riding high, ripped off 2 wins. Chances are they're really, really close to clinching a Division II. I don't want to spoil anything, but you guys, you heard me say they're going to win the Super Bowl, so you can figure they'll probably win the Division II. I think they lose to Washington, as wild as that sounds. I do. I think they beat Dallas at home, and I think they beat the Giants at home to either lock up a 1 seed or better seeding. So that would put them at 12-5, guys. The Philadelphia Eagles at 12-5. 12-5 with their losses again to Green Bay week 1. Cincy, that'd be week 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with a bye. 8. Dallas week 10. God, I'm going back and forth. Baltimore week 13. Washington week 16. Oh, I don't know how I feel about that. 12-5. It's a lot of wins. It's a tough record to get to, but I'm going to stick with it. So, the 2 contenders in the East, the New York Jets, we have at 11-6. Not going to spoil the division because it's going to be really close, but the Philadelphia Eagles at 12-5, winning the NFC East. And you guys heard me say it. It's July 23rd. I do reserve the right to change this, but right now, that's my Super Bowl pick. I think the Eagles are the best team in the NFL right now. Top to bottom, paper, with what they can do schematically. No, I got Giants fans listening. I'm sorry, guys, but that's what I have. So, Jets 11-6, Eagles 12-5. If you guys are watching this on the 23rd tomorrow, and if you're watching this on the 24th tonight, we're going to have episode 2 of the record predictions coming out, which will be the New England Patriots and the Washington Commanders. Obviously, there'll be a little bit of overlap because we talked about them, but if you guys enjoyed this, make sure to leave a 5-star rating if you're listening on the audio platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like the video, subscribe if you're not already, but I appreciate you guys. I will see you in episode 2 of the schedule release, the East schedule release. God bless you guys. See you soon.